Hey guys, what's up? It is week 466. This is the Thursday before Cinema Wasteland. I'll be there Saturday. I'll have an update for next week. I don't think anybody's going to be able to see this before. And so, yeah, let's just jump into the reviews. The first one up is from Arrow Video. This is a 4K release of The Eye by the Pang brothers. Now, they got famous. Their first film was Bangkok Dangerous. Did pretty well and kind of put them on the map. So this kind of attracted the attention of the Hong Kong producer who did, 3 and 3 Extremes, and he kind of makes international kind of pictures for a broader kind of audience and whatnot. So this is actually a Thai Hong Kong kind of co-production here. Also parts were made in Singapore, so it's got like a trifecta there. So this became a pretty big hit, and this is, one of the big Asian ghost stories of the early 2000s that came out with stuff like The Grudge and The Ring and One Missed Call and Pulse, all sorts of those movies, and they're pretty much taken over the entire horror landscape. It's pretty much what kept horror alive for some people. But The Eye was one that I had never actually seen. I'd seen, of course, all the Ringu films and stuff like that, and One Missed Call, Dark Water, and I enjoyed all of them to a certain extent. So The Eye, I was like, okay, this one, it has a kind of a fairly typical story in the setup, right? What happens is we have this blind girl. She's been blind since she was, I think, 2 years old is when she went blind, but she ends up getting an eye transplant, right? Cornea transplant, which is it's a common story here, right? The Hands of Orlok. We have John Carpenter's body bags, body parts, so many different stories, right? Where you have the kind of body part replacement, and then even The Simpsons spoofed it, and it becomes kind of evil or something kind of happens. The story on VHS 2 was also very similar to this one as well. In fact, pretty much the same fucking story, to be honest. This has a lot of similarities to The Sixth Sense and Final Destination as well, but it's really well done. So we have a really likable character, young girl who gets the eye transplant, and at the beginning she kind of has blurry eyes. She makes friends with this poor young girl in the hospital who is a cancer patient, and exactly where that's going to go. And soon enough she starts to kind of see like hazy kind of things, and dark figures kind of take people into these kind of things, and you realize that there's something like she has this third sight, this sixth sense, I guess, if you will. So as it progresses, it gets worse and worse, and it's that story, right, where somebody who was blind and they wanted the vision. Of course, now their life seems to be more complex, and she starts getting help by her psychiatrist, or I can't think of exactly this doctor's. I always mix up psychiatrist and psychiatric. I mix up the two doctors, but anyways, he's trying to help her kind of cope with having vision now. He's more of that kind of doctor, not necessarily a psychiatrist, but trying to cope, and he actually help her cope. He's actually related to the doctor to the surgery, so it's like a family of doctors, and they start to both realize that there's something a little bit different, something a little bit wrong with this case. And there's some really tremendous scares in this one, to be honest. They actually do a lot of good scares in here and set it up really well. So what ends up happening is she starts to see kind of people that have recently died, or dead people. And what they managed to do on this, and when you watch the special features, is they said that the Pang brothers actually incorporated a lot of Hong Kong kind of myths and scary kind of ghost stories, like the ghost woman licking the roast pork and the elevator stuff. So you have a lot of kind of stuff set in the tradition in that aspect as well. The producer actually added in one of his own kind of scares, which is really well done and effective, with kind of a confused man, or just man generally standing right in the middle of traffic, which is kind of haunting. It's more of a haunting and less, jump scare kind of movie. It has a lot of haunting things and building and tension of that nature, and it's generally a scary movie, to be honest. And they do really well with kind of having like her vision, since she's getting adjusted, vision sometimes will like blur, and weird things will start to happen where she'll be seeing something and there'll be a shift in the shadows and it will change. And I find that actually to be some of the more kind of effective scares, because if anybody's had that kind of in the middle of the night you wake up and you think you see something, but it's not quite as it seems, and they do that really well. Well done acting, and it jumps around to 3 different locations, and we kind of get the whole classic Ringu story, right, where in the Ring we kind of have to figure out what this girl's backstory is to try to solve this kind of haunting, and the same thing kind of happens with a reveal through the middle of the film, which I don't necessarily want to spoil, but it's the kind of opposite, right? With this idea, you think that the person with special powers may be evil because you had seen the Ring, so it goes back to a traditional professional sense when you're actually trying to help somebody who is haunted by the past. And we get into some dark subjects like, again, it has that Sixth Sense kind of thing like Dead Zone, right? Where the person who has that power becomes almost like an outcast, if you will. And it ties into a real life tragedy that happened in Thailand where, a gas tanker exploded on an expressway and a bunch of people died. It ties into that, adding in that kind of fifth, Final Destination kind of premonition stuff, which I thought was really well done. Overall, I was actually really impressed with The Eye. I had not seen it, like I said, and there's 2 more that I'm looking forward to. And I know the Pang brothers did more movies. They did a couple in America. The Messengers is one that they did. But as far as the features, there's a good amount. It looks great, and it sounds great. And it's just one of these things, right? In the early 2000s, a lot of these movies came out, and they were shot on, you thought they would look like crummy because you saw them on DVD or VHS, and a lot of them didn't get remastered. It's kind of a shit-on era for movies of that nature. And I'm probably guilty of it, too, because I grew up during that time. There wasn't that many great movies coming out, according to 13-year-old me, or whatever age I was. But seeing some of these look remastered, and they look actually spectacular. This one was definitely shot on film, and it looks great. And I have that, if you're familiar with Hong Kong movies, and sometimes that idea that foreign people, the Pang brothers grew up in Hong Kong, so it's a little different, but, different eyes on Hong Kong is interesting as well. But as far as the special features are concerned, we have 4K, HDR10, original lossless Cantonese 5.1, Reflections of the Eye, a brand new interview with producer Peter Ho-Sun Chan to see and feel vision, empathy, and the feminine ghost story in the Eye, brand new visual essay on the by film critic and horror specialist Heather Wixton. It's pretty interesting too, because she points out that a lot of the generally driving force of the characters are like 3 generations of women, and it's definitely in there, I would say so. An archival making of featurette with interviews and with producers Peter Ho-So Chan and Lawrence Chang, and actors Angelica Lee and Lawrence Chow, an archival featurette on directors Danny and Oxide Pang, original trailers, image gallery, reversible sleeve, original cover and newly commissioned by Tommy Pocket, collector's booklet featuring new writing on the film by film critic and Asian cinema expert Haley Scallion. Yeah, so great release. The old stuff, the archival stuff is relatively short and sweet, but gives you kind of an eye into what the film industry and stuff was at that time. But great release from Arrow Video. I hope they do release the other ones. I'd be very interested in checking those out. Alright guys, I'm here to talk about one from 88 Films. This is from 2012, and this is Helter Skelter. And this one, is one that I'd seen in passing, but I didn't know all that much about it. And I knew that it had kind of a reputation, a positive reputation. The director is a female, and she had done a couple movies beforehand. One that 88 had put out, which I'll get to eventually. I definitely plan on checking that one out. And this is based on a manga, and the manga is kind of popular, and the story is pretty age and timeless, but I think in more modern times we'd seen stuff like The Substance, or The Ugly Stepsister, or then we go back like Rejuvenatrix, stuff like that. The idea that people who are in the spotlight have to hold on to their beauty or get replaced, and that there's probably some, devious kind of companies in the background kind of pulling the strings and helping people, maintain their beauty to what cost, right? So our main character is this model who's at the top of her game, and on the outside she's gorgeous and people love her, but on the inside she's rotten, like the movie says, like a fruit rotten from the inside. And the structure of the story is a little bit different. We kind of see like from the police perspective, so we know like the framing that there's something going on here, that we're going to get to the bottom of it. And the police officer, the main detective here, has the DA has an incredibly vested interest in her. He finds her very interesting for the idea who she is and whatnot. And the other characters that are kind of important in this are, the mother, the so-called mother, who kind of guides this woman and takes care of her and kind of morphs her into what she is and kind of makes her the monster that she actually becomes, as well as her helper and her helper's boyfriend, which they create this crazy love triangle after, our model here starts to lose some, face and lose some of her, stature. She just kind of lashes out and wants to control people and have this power over them. Tremendous performance from the lead here. In fact, all the acting is pretty well done. No complaints. All spectacular performances. Has surprisingly some more sexually explicit stuff than I would expect. Not incredibly graphic, but in this one, it just kind of comes in and you're like, oh, that's a little bit more explicit than I guess I necessarily thought it would be. The sets are great. The style is excellent as well. And it's damn near a 2-hour movie, but it really works, and it really says a lot of stuff that other films like, Black Swan or Perfect Blue would say, and Substance. But I think it has its own style, that Japanese kind of style. And the lead actress in here had grown up as like kind of an actress, and she was in the spotlight. So during the, behind the scenes stuff with the director mentions, it was a little too close to home for her with a lot of this stuff. And it obviously hit some nerves on here, and it does show through. And I do think that there's a lot of truth to this story, and having the kind of shady organization in the background that's giving these people these this beauty serum, if you will. It definitely feels like, that maybe the director of The Substance has watched a lot of Japanese films and was definitely inspired. We could see stuff like, Kubrick in those movies, of course, and even Basket Case and all sorts of weird shit like that. But I definitely see a lot of Japanese influence in those in terms of story and structure, how that kind of unfolds and whatnot. But as far as the special features, we have a handful here. We have a numbered OBI strip, booklet notes by Violet Burns, high definition Blu-ray, of course, 1.1851, 5.1 audio tracks, stereo as well. Commentary by Tori Ponzenza and Amber T. Good commentary. Interview with Erika Sawayuri, director Mika Ninagawa, behind-the-scenes footage of the making of Helter Skelter, Japanese premiere stage greeting, opening day stage greeting, Tapi Film Festival Q&A with Mika Ninagawa, original rehearsal footage, stills gallery teaser and trailer, original and newly commissioned art by Luke Insect. Good art, and it's really stylized, bizarre film. I think a lot of people will dig this one, Helter Skelter. Check it out. Okay, the last one in the Samurai Revolution trilogy is, of course, 11 Samurai. And this one, just as good as the other ones, but the runtime is about 100 minutes. So it's significantly shorter, and it managed to tell a similar story in just an effective detail, if you ask me. So this one, it takes place in, 1839? I think it takes place a few years before, I think, the other films, if I'm not mistaken, at least one of the other films. So this one, it's kind of the time of peace, of course, and as they say in these movies, it's harder to rule in peace because there's always something going on that you think. But we have all these lords that are related to the, the shogun or whoever, the ruler and whatnot, family members, and they have their own piece of territory that they rule. And one day, one of these lords, who everybody seems to always have a problem through, crosses into the Obashi territory, and he ends up killing a peasant. And instead of apologizing or doing what makes it right, even though you really should, and he already committed murder. He's a horrible piece of shit who plays a similar piece of shit in the other two films. But so he actually commits murder, and instead of trying to save face, he immediately kills one of the chiefs of this place, and right in front of everybody as well. And he kind of rides back, and to kind of not create this kind of chaotic moment where the entire infrastructure would crumble because of it during the political stuff of that nature, they basically tell this chief, the next in line, that didn't happen. What happened was your chief wronged him and he killed him, instead of the idea that it was an accident or something of that nature, instead of the idea that this person was so horrible and shitty and they didn't want anybody to know that he committed such a low petty, like a low shitty crime, that the idea that if people heard about that, they would just kind of take the whole entire political structure, the ruling structure, and throw it out the window. So to do that, in typical politician way, they kind of sweep it under the rug and tell these guys that that's not what happened, and they punish them basically for not doing anything wrong. Instead, they were actually done wrong against, and now they're being punished. So what happens is this new kind of in charge guy learns that he is going to find a group of samurai that are going to become Ronins, so they can kind of sneak in here and kill this lord, because at this rate the Obayashi kind of tribe is going to be broken up and kind of disbanded, is what he thinks. So he finds a loyal kind of man who's married, very, very good man, very dedicated to the clan, and he decides that he's going to go out there, and he agrees to it and try to stop this lord at any chances necessary. Of course, the lord has his own kind of bodyguard, similar to the previous film, The Great Killing, where the shitty lord has his own bodyguard, right? Who, although he obviously doesn't get along, he doesn't like him, he's going to do everything it takes to protect him and show loyalty to him, because that's his job, and that's the way these people are, right? And in this time, is that they have this loyalty to the whatever it is, and that's all that matters. And once that their mission is done, or that loyalty is broken, or there's something that kind of makes them awful, or they lose face, they will commit harikiri or seppuku, or whichever you want to call it, or die in battle. That's what they want. So he ends up getting a group of guys together in a great scene where you think they're actually going to be punished, but he actually utilizes this moment of these angry guys that want to get revenge on the son as well. So he gets his kind of ragtag group of people, and there's one more that joins the cause, which is this guy, one of the most interesting characters of the film. He's actually in 13 Assassins. He's one of the more interesting characters because he's not a samurai. He's just someone who kind of talks to him, and eventually you learn his backstory, that he's just been through a lot, and his ideology, his idea, his thought process in this makes a lot of sense. So we kind of get our ragtag group of people. And a lot of this is torturous because they're setting up this elaborate plan. And there's a couple moments when they actually could have taken out this guy. But I don't want to spoil absolutely everything. But it doesn't necessarily unfold as you expect it to in certain moments. But it eventually does. And the end climactic moments are great. Good characters. Very similar to 13 Assassins and The Great Killing. But right up there with it. And and like you hit this point in these movies where you're like these characters have no more reason to live. Like you're like, there's no more reason for this character to carry on if their mission is completed or their mission has failed. It's just like, well, I didn't plan on living through this thing either. It's an honor to die this way as long as I'm carrying out something that I see noble. But excellent movie, great stuff. This whole trilogy is all great movies, and if you get in the right mindset, I think you can enjoy all of them. As far as the special features, we have a new commentary by David West, which is a good commentary as always. Fighting the Poison, a brand new video essay by film critic and Japanese cinema expert Jonathan Clemens on the historical setting and context of the film. Samurai Gorilla Part 3, an archival interview with Mizuhara Ari and Dirty Kudō, discuss some of the filming techniques seen in the film and the conception of the samurai scene in Arikyo Kudō's Jidaki films. Now, there's a couple different kind of things, the Jidaki, and I can't remember the difference of these kind of term. I think one is in a time of peace. The one is the great or the horrible time, and one is I'm mixing it up. And Kudō, The Art of Realism, archival interview with Fabrice Arduni, filmmaker and programmer for the House of Culture of Japan and Paris, where he discusses Jadageki and the films of Kudō. So yeah, a great set here. I would recommend all three of them actually, and I don't know which one I prefer. 13 Assassins is the classic title, but The Great Killing has some iconic imagery, and the fast-paced nature of 11 Samurai is also great. So check this set out. Good stuff. Highly recommended. All black and white, all look spectacular too. Okay, we have a couple from Visual Vengeance here, and let's start off with the first one here, Colony Mutation, aka Colony of the Dark. It's when I originally saw this title under the Apprehensive DVD, which I think I probably covered years and years ago. Now, this is a Super 8 movie here, so it's looking mighty rough on Blu-ray, but yeah, I do love Super 8 myself. So this one here, so first and foremost, I have to say this right off the bat, Visual Vengeance did a great job with this release. You got commentaries and interviews with the actors and the people that made the movie, and as much as they could get on this one, because this is a really obscure movie, to be honest. I mean, the director really didn't go on to do that many more movies, if any, actually. He worked with film and stuff of that nature, but he didn't direct any more movies. And this guy went into debt making this movie, put his heart and soul into this movie, and it shows you how hard it was making movies. And he missed the boat, I think. It's just a couple more years earlier, he probably would have had more success with this one being in video stores and whatnot. But yeah, Colony Mutation. So it's a relatively short movie, relatively straightforward in its plot. We have this character who works in a lab. I don't necessarily know what he does, but he works at the same place as his wife, and his wife is kind of fooling around with these genetic modifications and things like that, and they've somehow created these they're trying to regrow limbs, but instead the thing grows into like a parasite and attaches itself and can detach itself. Reminds me of something like a Stuart Gordon or Frank Cannellata movie. Hell, Bad Biology would kind of become this later on, right? We even have the kind of dick kill in here, which would be used before in Brain Damage, which will not detach body part stuff, but and Pervert is also another movie where we have a detached dick killing people. That's just a thing, I guess. Killer Condom is another one with kind of a weird killer condom dick thing, but yeah, killer dicks, people love them. But Colony of the Dark here, so I said incredibly ambitious. I like the setup, I like the plot, but there's a lot of budgetary stuff and people quitting on the film and them trying to rewrite it at the time that holds the fucking thing back, and it shows. It's Super 8, it's a dark kind of film, and it's really gritty, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily show up the best. So at first, you'll notice that a lot of this stuff is ADR'd. Even though Super 8 picks up sound, a lot of the sound had to be redubbed and refixed and stuff of that nature, and it hurts the performances. I don't necessarily know if anyone's incredibly bad, but when they have to redub over their voices and whatnot, it does show, and it comes across really awkward, and it definitely it gives it a weird kind of vibe to the entire thing. But the main guy, as well as, working in with his wife, he decides to start an affair with somebody else that works there, and he's just a scuzzy piece piece of shit. And within like the first 10 minutes, you don't like him. But after he gets infected with something that his wife splashes in his face, you really don't like him. He becomes a little bit more violent, more sexually aggressive, and he just is overall a horrible piece of shit, unlikable character, and not very interesting either. Not the actor's role problem or anything like that. Just a very generic character, right? Not that interesting. Just kind of cheats around and everything like that. And the director actually tried to make him a little bit more likable. He said in the beginning he was even more unlikable. So it's funny that he still comes across as unlikable in this movie. But some of the kills are pretty fun, including death by Dick. But it's not as graphic as some people might think. And the main kind of guy, as it goes on, he becomes this kind of weird, discombobulated man where he can like lose his limbs and his arm can attack. And it sounds such like a great idea and a cool idea. But a lot of this is shown at the very end, and the moving head, the moving arms, and it's so dark you can't see a lot what's going on. Now, and I think in the early like 2010, 2013 or something around that time, he went ahead and added in digital effects at one point to kind of like make the floating fingers and look a little bit better. And they do have the original version on here too if you don't like that, but that's the version I did see. And I think I actually enjoyed this one a little bit more when I originally saw this one, but revisiting it, I think that the seams show too much, and the rewrites that he had to do just make it really clunky. It's incredibly ambitious. It has a lot of stuff to like, but I think that the clunkiness really just kind of holds it back, and the visual stuff of it. I've watched a couple SOV movies, and they actually look better than this in a lot of places because the darkness, the film is, it just did never. It was shot too dark. It just was maybe overexposed. Something happened to it where it just doesn't particularly look very good, and I have a hard time making out anything that's happening here. And it's kind of funny, the dog on a movie that's shot on Super 8 that's incredibly ambitious with wild, weird effects that some guy put up, went into $30,000 in debt for. So it's something that I don't really enjoy. As far as the release, as saying these things, as far as the release is concerned, it's a great release. If you like the movie, if you're interested in these kind of low budget movies, and one of these kind of last bastions of kind of batshit crazy video store movies that you would see. So we have a new director supervised 2K transfer from the original Super 8 film elements, commentary with producer director Tom Berna, commentary with Tony Strauss of Wang Chops magazine. That's a good commentary. He basically takes all the supplemental stuff on here and a bunch of other stuff and does a really fast paced, intriguing commentary. New interview with director Tom Berna, new interview with star David Rommel, and the director does mention that he wanted to make something serious. He's like, I feel like so many people go out there and they make something silly because they're scared to make something serious, and he definitely took this movie 100% serious. And there's a decent kill count. It's not like a boring movie. There's always something going on. Alternative original 1998 VHS version of the movie, alternate original 2013 DVD version of the film, complete original script, image gallery, producer teaser trailer, visual vengeance, booklet with liner notes by Tony Strauss, stick your own VCR sticker set, reversible sleeve with the VHS art, folded mini poster, promotional or optional subtitles. So tons of stuff in here, full screen. I think the one is stretched out to widescreen. That's what I said. Great. I like that cover too, of the guy falling apart. But this is something that I think that people that love ambitious movies, that can forgive a lot, will enjoy Colony Mutation. But check it out. Okay, we have another one here from Visual Vengeance, and this is called The Paranormal. And this is directed by a guy named Todd Norris. And Todd Norris made movies in, is it Kansas City? The same place that Todd Sheets came from. So yeah, the two Todds here, they definitely have a little featurette on that. So The Paranormal is a movie that I don't think I ever had heard of before Visual Vengeance releases. Pretty fucking obscure. Now, they do mention in the commentary that somebody does, I can't remember who, mentions that Modern Horror did put out a VHS, and Modern Horror was the Todd Sheets label, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Mostly Todd Sheets stuff got put on there, like Zombie Bloodbath and Dead Things and stuff of that nature. And so I do have a couple of those. I obviously did not get The Paranormal or see that VHS release of that. Those are pretty rare. So this one's incredibly rare. Like I said, I'd never heard of it, and I'm kind of surprised too, because it is very innovative and very ambitious and incredibly fun. And it's a zombie flick, and it's a non-traditional zombie flick from a really kind of crappy time for horror films. There's a lot of decent independent stuff, but there was not a great time in the late 90s for horror films at all. I don't think many people would argue with me on that one. But so what happens is we have these group of paranormal investigators. They work at a college. They never get funding. There's like three of them, and the one kind of is a whiz. He's a young guy, and he puts up and he asks, the big, kind of head lady who runs the science place, the science, I guess she's in charge of all, the funding for the science kind of labs and the programs and stuff like that. He goes in there and he basically pleads to her in a meeting everything, and they kind of deny it. So he's not happy about it. And then she comes back and she tells him, listen, we just had some really crazy activity happen with all these weird paranormal things, and we want to send you out there to check it out. He's a little kind of hesitant at first because it's his hometown, but he decides to go along with her, and he ends up going to this movie theater where these kind of weird paranormal activities are happening. So boom, we got a movie theater setting, which is actually great. Immediately thought of course, Demons, which is one of my favorite movies. The director actually didn't know what Demons was when he made this, which is wild. But so I immediately thought Demons. And he had started making this in probably the mid-90s, and it didn't get finished until 98. But so they realized that something definitely is weird is going on. Of course, the lady that runs the theater is a love interest of his that he knew back in the day. There's also another woman that works there. So we have our core 4 kind of main characters, and they're trying to figure out what's happening, why these kind of paranormal kind of glitches and stuff are picking up. And our character realizes that, our usher, if you will, realizes that it's in the film reel changes. And this crummy zombie movie called like Zombie, Z is for Zombie or something like that, which you see a big bunch of that. And you see like clips of it and everything like that. And before long, they realize that they're trapped in the theater, and the only way to get out of the theater is kind of go in the film and fix everything. And that's where it becomes like close up the loose end. I can't remember, they got to close the door or whatnot in the film. And there's footage from that movie. Also, they use Zombie Bloodbath 1 and 2 footage from the hordes and stuff like that, because those were pretty ambitious movies at the time. But they actually film a little bit of themselves, kind of stuff like this. And I could have swore, I have to say, this is filmed in the same minds as Day of the Dead. If not, it damn well looks like the same mind of Day of the Dead, but I can't believe that they went all the way to Pennsylvania to do that. But maybe they did. But if it's not, the footage, the place they shot looks 100% like Day of the fucking Dead, which and I memorized that stuff. Maybe they all the underground mines look like that everywhere. But it was very boom. I was like, man, is that Day of the Dead stuff? But so when they go in the film or you see the film, there is some kind of fun little moments and things like that remind you of other films. There's even a Bub-like character, without spoiling too much. This is also incredibly fast paced, 70 minutes. It starts off as kind of a spooky little fun thing and turns into a fun little zombie movie. It has the right tone. It's not incredibly violent, but it's it's fun spirited, and the characters are likable, and overall, it's an enjoyable movie. And all the musical cues, I was like, oh, that sounds a lot like Day of the Dead. That sounds a lot like Dawn of the Dead. That sounds a lot like Goblin. And they do, the commentaries pointed out, yeah, the music guy was like, yeah, that's a little bit like Dawn Day. And stuff like that. You could tell these little cues and stuff. These are big fans of these movies. And it shows. And I don't love every indie movie, especially more modern ones, and I don't even like a lot of the indie movies anymore when I rewatch them from this time. Not all of them hold up, and this is one that I had not seen. And I'm like, oh, this is incredibly charming and ambitious, and the story is cool and fun, and it's just entertaining. And it's so fast-paced that you can't really wear out your welcome. The characters are likable. They're not overly obnoxious. There's some silliness to be had. Overall, I think this is a good one, and the location's great in the theater, even though it's an SOV or low-budget movie. I would recommend this one, checking it out. But as far as the special features are concerned, we have new director supervised transfer from original tape elements, commentary with director Todd Norris, commentary with director Todd Norris and composer Paul Roberts, new cast and crew interviews. It's just a handful in there. Maybe I can't think, maybe like 2 or 3 in there that they talk about getting into the movie. The guy from Z for Zombie and the other lead actress in here, and the lead actor is actually the director, of course. 2 Todds, Todd Norris and Todd Sheets interviews. They basically interview them, talk to each other. That's fun because Todd Sheets is like generally one of the sweetest guys ever. They talk about, the Kansas City scene at that time. And then we have Paranormal Channel 5, TV airing bumpers, blooper reel, deleted scenes, original script excerpts, storyboard gallery, short film The Closet, which is actually kind of fun, little stinger horror movie, short film L, which is pretty funny, short film Night of the Growling, short film Parallax, Visual Vengeance trailer, stick your own VHS sticker set, of course, reversible sleeve, folded mini poster, art by Giorgio Crodaro, original sleeve by The Dude, original English subtitles, region free, 70 minutes. I actually really genuinely like that cover art right there. Good stuff. This one, it looks a little bit more modern. This is the one I think like they throw in the video store to kind of get people's attention. But I like the old school one. Not that that one's bad, but I'm more of an old school guy, and that looks more old school kind of poster design for me. But I actually really enjoyed the Paranormal. Check it out. Okay, next up, I decided to continue my Ilsa series here, and we have Ilsa, Harlem Keeper of the Oil Sheiks. Yeah, that's right, on 4K from Kino Lorber, directed by Don Edmonds, starring, of course, Diane Thorne. Also got Buck Flower in there, and some porn stars, some people that would go on, or before they were in porn films, so that's kind of crazy here. Yeah, so Ilsa, I'd never seen the sequel here, and I'm glad that Don Edmonds and Diane Thorne both came back here. And it's funny in the commentary, somebody says, "What time is this set?" And he says, "Never, never time." Like, there's no real time for this because you're thinking about it and you're like, when is this set? Is this after Elsa? Because, Diane Thorne dies in the first one and it's just a character that just doesn't die, comes back. Maybe it's alternate reality. Who the fuck knows? But this one, there's a couple commentaries on here, one with the director and, like, Diane Thorne and some other people. And then, of course, you got one with, I can never say his name right, but he is with Kat Ellinger, of course. And they talk a lot about this. So this one here, I actually really enjoyed it. I love the first one. I had seen the first one a couple times, and I was a little leery. I didn't know if the sequel was going to hold up, and it did hold up. It's got like some of the same people from the first one, including Buck Flower as a hunchback, syphilitic kind of rapist, really gross character. But yeah, this one not quite as mean-spirited as the first one, but damn nearly as sleazy, I would say. Not as much torture, but definitely just as kind of sexually explicit. So the main kind of leader of the oil sheik guy, he runs this small little community on his property. He has tons of oil, and he's exploiting all the people around him, and he has gotten so out of control that he has tons of women surrounding him. He sleeps with all of them, of course, but it's not enough for him, so he sends out agents to kind of kidnap some of I guess, the world's beauties. He kidnaps a famous actress, like a Swedish beauty, and some other people, these three women, and he gets them transported to his kind of castle and whatnot. And Diane Thorne, as this Ilsa, of course, is kind of one of his main henchmen, kind of does a lot of work for him and does a lot of things in the background. She has two henchmen of her own, Velvet and Satin, who are these two kind of, strong looking black women that are pretty much topless in bikinis the entire movie. So this is definitely the kind of movie that you're going to watch, this exploitative kind of nonsense crazy movie. There's a couple CIA agents that kind of are coming in here, one of which is the general from the first film, and one's kind of the himbo kind of style character. They say it in the commentary, I would agree with them. He kind of is the character from the first one, right? And he kind of, I guess he kind of sometimes goes in and manipulates, has sex with women, and changes the course of history through it, right? I guess we're going to do in that idea. But of course, they have somebody on the inside wearing a wire, and of course, they're going to do stuff like that person gets captured, they torture him, cut out their eyes. They have all these nasty little bits and everything like that. But yeah, what happens is by the end of the film, we turn it into this like giant kind of action exploitation movie, just like the first Ilsa. But along the way, we have, of course, nasty little bits in here, like Diane Thorne getting molested by the syphilitic hunchback, which is crazy. Of course, it's to showcase her giant breast. And they talk about it in the commentary. Ken Ellinger's like, well, Russ Meyer and was pretty big at this time, so there's definitely kind of doing some Russ Meyer stuff here with the more focus on the breast instead of just entire nudity. But I don't think it's as nasty as the first one, but I think it's just as not as good, but just as entertaining as the first one. And good shootouts at the very end. Of course, there's a lot of on PC humor nowadays. This humor would not fly. Jokes about the Sheik sending a little boy to the CIA agent's room, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" That's whole argument is insane. But yeah, plenty of sleaze, plenty of action, plenty of insanity. Overall, I think this is a pretty fun movie, pretty crazy exploitation stuff here. Would highly recommend. As far as the features are concerned, audio commentary by actress Diane Thorne, director, this is Diane Thorne, director Don Edmonds, actor Howard Marr, who I think was married to Diane Thorne, or was definitely connected with her. He used to go around to the conventions with her, I remember that, and moderated by humorist Martin Lewis. This commentary is good, too, because it's made, like, for the old Anchor Bay DVD, I believe, and, he says a lot, Don Edmonds is not the guy who's like, what we were trying to do here. He's just like, we were making this movie, and if it's in there, maybe subconsciously. I don't fucking know, but we were just trying to make a good movie for a cheap buck and just get it out there or whatever. And that's refreshing to hear. Sometimes these things are happy accidents. Sometimes they're subconscious. Sometimes they're not there at all. And then we also have a commentary by film historians Kat Ellinger and Eugenia Malodic. I have trouble saying your name. I'm sorry about that. And then we have an interview with Don Edmonds, Part 2 by Elijah Drenner. Good stuff. Still galleries, theatrical trailer, French dialogue track. So if you want to watch this, class it up a little bit and watch Ilsa, Harlem, Keeper of the Oil Sheiks in French, you can do so. But looks great, sounds great. I can't believe this fucking thing is in 4K. But what a time to be alive. Great stuff. All right, guys, let's get into those 1983 movies.
I have returned. Where is the music now? The sound of laughter. There was never laughter.
What's it like?
What's what like?
Screwing a psycho.
God blows dead dogs. Just lay it in there.
Eat shit and die, Ricky!
Eat shit and live, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, he's a little wet.
31. 32. 32. Year of a man's prime. Loved by many women. You might still learn to swim. 32. Going. Gone.
The kid was cut in half, Arnie. They had to scrape his legs up with a shovel.
Well, isn't that what you're supposed to do with shit? Scrape it up with a little shovel?
One final moment of revenge.
Wondering what's real. All of it is real.
You want to see something really scary? You bet. Really? Yeah.
Get the video, Joe! Long live the new flesh!
No choice but to kill the son of a bitch.
Living one's entire life in a state of fear. It is all I have ever known. Fear.
Are you ready? Okay, go ahead. What are you doing?
Okay, the first one up is one of the earliest SOV movies ever made. The first movie SOV movie made for the video stores is what they claim, because Boarding House was actually blown up to 35. But this is Sledgehammer by David A. Pryor, who'd go on to do stuff like Killer Workout, Lost Platoon, Deadly Prey. So David Pryor, this is his directorial debut. It stars Ted Pryor, his brother, and a bunch of their buddies and friends and whatnot. This is definitely an incredibly low-budget movie here. They tried to make it as best as they could, but definitely, you know, the seams do show here and there. And I remember when this one was originally released on DVD, there was a big kind of thing. Clint Kelly, who was a YouTuber, and I was corresponded a lot back and forth with Clint. Clint was a cool guy. He ended up trying really hard, digging out the rights and everything, contacting David Pryor, and got this sucker released through Intervision, which was Severn's sub-label, on DVD. And everybody saw it, and I remember watching this damn thing back then and haven't seen it since. So revisiting it for 83 was kind of fun. It brought back some memories at the same time. Brought back the damn slow motion. So I am not one of these huge fans of Sledgehammer. I like, you know, Killer Workout's a blast. And I don't hate David Pryor or anything like that. And Ted Pryor seems like the genuine, like, awesome guy. But as far as like Sledgehammer, being like a super fan of Sledgehammer, I never was, and I will not pretend to be, and I still am not. But I do kind of have some love for the entire time of filmmaking, and definitely interest in this one. But especially after listening to the mountains of special features on here, I did grow a little bit more of an appreciation for Sledgehammer. So of course this one here, it's your kind of generic slasher kind of story. It's a little odd, a little weird actually. David Pryor, you know, would see slashers and he realized he thought it was a good idea to make a slasher, a cheaper one, even though he, in the commentaries and stuff, since he's since passed, but an old commentary, he says, I should have made an action movie, we could have just ran in the woods. But him and about his brother, and I think like 4 or 5 other kind of 5, 6 actors ended up making this movie in their apartment. There's like two different locations here, one of which is a cabin, and the exteriors and the interiors is their apartment. But it's your typical standard story. It opens up in the beginning, you kind of get a little bit backstory where a mother is like, hey, get in the closet to her son, and he ends up sleeping with. She's going to plan on sleeping with this guy, and somebody kills them both with a sledgehammer in brutal fashion. We kind of fast forward, and then this group of kind of friends are hanging out, got a party, gonna drink, and they end up start getting picked off by this big hulking giant guy who's kind of wielding a sledgehammer, who kind of transfers back and forth between kid. It's kind of like that Jason element, right, where he's like, is he a kid, is he a grown man? It's a little weird. That's kind of the most interesting aspect of the movie, to be honest, as far as the killer kind of motivations. It has your classic style low budget score, like synthy kind of thing at the time. The one thing that makes this one stand out is it came under runtime. The runtime was super short, and they padded the whole damn thing out with slow motion. Everything became this incredibly stretched out slow motion thing where there's like a 5-minute walk in the backyard. There's people doing everything in slow motion. Some of it is effective, but after a while you're like, what the fuck is happening? Especially the walk in the backyard. It becomes hilarious. Ted Pryor is the director's brother. He stars in the movie, and at the time he was like a Chippendale dancer, bodybuilder, so he's like a hunk of a guy. He brings in some of his buddies too, one of which is a Chippendale dancer, one of which was a bodybuilder. So you get this weird group of guys that are all like Chippendale dancer and bodybuilder guys, and the killer is also from the gym, so he's really tall. So you get a really weird mixture of characters. Now the acting's not great. Ted Pryor does shine. He does have fun in the role, and he seems like a cool guy. He plays guitar in it, so it's just like all sorts of crazy things. And he actually did a lot on the movie. If you listen to the features and stuff, did the special effects, helped like assistant direct the damn thing. So it's definitely a Pryor Brothers movie. I think it's memorable. I think it has moments that people never forget. And this early on, it definitely is one of these ones that I think people would watch and be inspired, especially if you're a big SOV fan. That I think everybody knows Sledgehammer. It's one of the first kind of SOV movies I think people hear of in terms of slashers. You think, well, you got Blood Cult, 555, Sledgehammer, Boarding House. I know the Boarding House is not necessarily a slasher, but you got those early kind of slasher SOV movies that I think a lot of people come around to or see and hear about. And I think Sledgehammer is one of the more kind of memorable ones. As far as the features, there's a fucking slew of them. It's insane that Sledgehammer has this many features on here. There's kind of the original VHS art here. But we have transferred, restored from Best Surviving Tape Master, new commentary, Ted Pryor and Clint Kelly, which is great to hear because Clint's a huge fan, and Ted is talks a lot about his brother and stuff like that who's passed, and a lot of things and memories and stuff. Just seems, I like that commentary a lot. It's very good. New commentary by film historian Yasmina Katena and TerraVision's Brad Henderson. Brad Henderson watches a lot of crazy, weird movies. That's a pretty solid commentary. Yasmina and Brad are both fans of the film. Archival commentary, David Pryor and Clint Kelly, which is nice to hear because that's Pryor doesn't seem to, he's like, yeah, it's not really even his thing. He doesn't care for the movie, it seems, but he's like, yeah, whatever. And Clint Kelly's super enthusiastic. Archival commentary, Bleeding Skull, of course. They mentioned in the beginning, we didn't do much research. We just kind of want to guess and talk about this stuff, and a lot of their ideas and stuff, you're like, this probably is what happened. But and then we have archival interview with David Pryor, The Hammer Will Fall, archival interview with Doug Matley, Because of My Brother, new interview with Ted Pryor, I Can Laugh About It, new interview with Janine Shear, It Was a Bloodfest, new interview with Robin, that's a hard name, Bo Chanchian. This Will Be My Testimony, new interview with Joe Bob Briggs, new interview with rights holder Clint Kelly, The Sledge's Family, 4-minute newly produced making of documentary with Robert Hamilton discussing crew members David Fuxit, Robbie I.C. Kun, Harrison Balls, Nick, you guys get the point, right? Okay. Rewind Zone with Yasmina Katena, courtesy of Rook Moore TV, Hammer Time featurette with Destroy All Movies, author Zach Carlson, Full Master presentation from the Severn DVD, Sledgehammer Land, newly created subtitles. So if you were ever a fan of Sledgehammer, this is the way to go. I am actually impressed with all the features on here. Maybe appreciate the movie a little bit more. I'm not a huge fan of the movie. I don't hate the movie, but it is what it is. A wacky, weird SOV movie from 1983. An incredibly early SOV slasher movie. Probably the first, slasher one. Especially the first made for the market, right? Now, I don't remember if any of those crummy, like mixtape ones, like Filmgore, wherever shot on shot on video or not. I don't think so. I remember like me and Art were having this conversation. He thought maybe one of them was at one point, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, Boarding House, the first, Sledgehammer is the first made for the video market, although I don't think it got a wider release until the mid 80s, but hey, it is what it is. It was made for the time. It wasn't released until the mid 80s, so I don't think. Okay, the next one up from 1983 is kind of one of the heavy hitters here, and this is the directorial debut of director Tony Scott. This is The Hunger, and Tony Scott was making a bunch of commercials before this one. His brother Ridley Scott had already started making movies, of course, with Alien and Blade Runner. So Ridley Scott's a fantastic director, and Tony Scott is an underrated director. He did stuff like True Romance later on, Days of Thunder, tons of stuff. But The Hunger, it's so crazy to think that this is Tony Scott's directorial debut when you look at his other films like True Romance and whatnot. And this is kind of like his art kind of film, his art film, and getting that whole thing out of his system with one movie. Has a fantastic cast in here. I'm always going to mispronounce her name, Catherine Deneuve. French is hard for me, but pretty big star at the time. David Bowie, of course, legendary, David Bowie music artist and whatnot, and actor. Susan Sarandon, which is also fantastic in here. It also has Cliff D. Young in here, Dan Hedaya, a small little tiny role by Willem Dafoe, and I feel like, am I missing anyone? I'm going to cheat on there. No, I think I got them all, but yeah, so great cast here. And the funny thing is, Jeremy did walk in, and he watched this one with me because I knew he'd like this one, and we were both talking like, it is funny that we do have kind of Janet and Brad from the Rocky Horror Picture Show and Shock Treatment, right? Because in Rocky Horror, Janet, Susan Sarandon, and then the sequel, the equal, not prequel, whatever, you guys get it right. Brad is played by Cliff D. Young, and he's in this one as well, and they're together, which is really weird to me. I know it's just a small little thing here. So this one's supposed to take place in New York. Most of it was shot in Britain, although the end has a little different scene here. But yeah, so Susan Sarandon is working on, this kind of serum to try to progeria, try to cure progeria, right? Which is what the character in Phantom of Death, the Ruggero Deodato movie, Michael York character had. But it's a disease that makes you age incredibly fast. Young kids will get it and they'll age really fast and they'll look horrible. It's a terrible disease, but she's working on a cure to try to fix this kind of deal. Catherine Deneuve is a vampire that's lived for hundreds of years, and she's had multiple partners that usually live only for X amount of time. David Bowie has lived for a decent amount of time, and then all of a sudden he starts aging rapidly, so he seeks out Susan Sarandon, who is this she's somebody that is incredibly good at her job and doing at the cusp of this crazy research, so he wants to find out try to get her to help him, but of course he ages incredibly fast, and it's really depressing and crazy. In the opening we have this great kind of I guess gothic kind of new, I don't fucking know the little small niches in music or not, but I guarantee that The Hunger with Bela Lugosi's Dead Bajas playing and Hellraiser had influences so much of the goth club scene and everything like that. I just see it and I'm like, oh, it has to, right? But that opening, the way it's edited is so artistic and entertaining and just awesome, with the kind of pickup of the two characters and killing them, David Bowie and Catherine picking these two characters up and killing them and sucking their blood. Definitely reminds me of latter day vampire movies. And I know I was mentioning how a lot of people say Salem's Lot in '79, then we didn't really have vampire movies until Fright Night, but it's we have The Hunger right here, right in the middle of Salem's Lot and Fright Night. And I think that The Hunger is an underrated movie and underappreciated, and I think more influential than people give credit for, and especially this weird kind of artistic, strange kind of feelings to it. It's definitely a branching of the weird 70s lesbianism vampires into the 80s kind of, I guess, craziness as well. Although vampires always have a tint of homosexuality, lesbianism, whatever you want to call it. It's always in there. I always joke that vampires, orientation is blood, and if you got it, they're willing to go with you to get some blood. But that's kind of the element too, and you live forever, so they're experimenting and doing all sorts of things like that. So vampires are definitely heavily sexual characters and creatures and whatnot. But that opening, I think it's well edited and insane. And this movie has so much atmosphere, this dark, beautiful kind of gothic style house. Although, how the fuck did David Bowie not know about all the lovers upstairs? Maybe he did, I don't know. But the lovers upstairs, that part is one of the more disturbing aspects, right? That you don't necessarily die after you've kind of expired. You age old and you get put in a coffin and you just kind of lay there as this withered, writhing kind of corpse. It's really fucked up. And the end, you kind of get this reveal of all of them kind of getting up. And I don't spoil everything, but it's very much like an EC comic style thing with all these corpses and these gowns and everything like that. It's just a great scene. In fact, I think visually this is one of the best movies of the 83. And I think when I was young, I was like, it's so slow paced. I saw this once and I was like, it's good, but it's slow paced, so boring. Watching it now, it's so fast paced and gets right into it. And I remember this movie Susan Sarandon being seduced by Catherine forever. I was like, it took forever, and I was like, no, it happens really fast. And they don't really have that much of a long relationship. It's a sexual kind of relationship here, and they show that in pretty graphic detail, which is impressive at the time, 83, having that lesbian kind of scene here. And anyways, I think that The Hunger's a great one. I wish that this got a deluxe special edition with all sorts of, dive-in essays and all that kind of stuff like that, more commentaries. But did I show that? The Warner Archive disc. It looks good. It sounds good. But it only has the commentary on here. But the commentary is, of course, by Tony Scott and Susan Sarandon, so you couldn't ask for two people better to do it. But yeah, they just are pretty open about it. And I think it's a good commentary. I think it's a great movie. I think it's very entertaining. And I think it's really kind of a unique vampire movie for the time that feels like an older one, but has the 80s aesthetics and introduces a couple new things as well. But highly recommended. Check out The Hunger. Good stuff. Okay, the next one from 1983 is from the Forgotten Jolly Volume 7 box set from Vinegar Syndrome. These are awesome sets, although I wish I would have got to dive in some of the latter sets. We're on like 9 now. But this one is Mystery. That's her name, but aka Dagger Eyes was in the American market. And this is more of a giallo thriller than a horror film, but hey, I cover the giallo or gialli, whatever you want to call them, when we do the 1980s movies. So this is actually directed by the group of people that made Nothing Underneath from 1985, which is a really weird kind of giallo slasher, psychic kind of Bond movie, which I covered for 85. And I haven't watched the Blu-ray yet, but it's a weird movie. Fun, kind of cool movie with, I think Donald Pleasance in that, really wacky. But this one here has a decent cast in Gabrielle Tinty, Janet Argan, and John Steiner. The lead actress here, she's like gorgeous and memorable, but she's not one that I've seen in very many movies. So this one is an odd movie here. And right in the beginning, like I'm listening to the commentary by Troy Howarth and Nathaniel Thompson and Eugenio Ercolani. And within the first 5 minutes of their commentary, I'm like, oh, great, guys. You said everything that I would have said on this movie. Like, I have nothing else in the first 5 minutes of their commentary. But to be honest, that's right away. Right when I saw John Steiner, there's a kind of a politician going down the road, and John Steiner has a sniper rifle, and I thought, goodbye, amen. Right? He's perfect to be this crazy assassin. If anybody's seen Tenebrae or Goodbye, Amen, or a million movies that John Steiner's in. You know what? John Steiner is a staple in Italian movies, even though he's not even from Italy. But he's a great actor, and he's in this one. And then we kind of cut to, and we have like a guy who's photographed the murders, kind of very, style to assassination. And he ends up, seems to be blackmailing these people over, hey, I have the camera footage, come over and pay me, and then you can have the footage. But at the meantime, when he's waiting, he's like, I'll pick up these two high-end prostitutes, who is our lead character here, and Janet Argan as well, from stuff like City of the Living Dead and Eaten Alive, a bunch of movies here. So they end up showing up, and they're like, they sleep with him, and he finishes fast. A lot of jokes to be had. Kind of a light-natured prostitute movie, right? Very stylized and not incredibly like dark or gritty or anything of that nature. And they mention that in the commentary too. Like, this isn't like a dark, nasty, gritty movie like Vice Squad or something. They don't mention Vice Squad, but it's not nasty. It's kind of like light and playful and weird and kind of silly in a lot of ways. But Janet Argan ends up stealing the lighter because she doesn't like the guy because he's a dick. And the lighter, of course, has the film in there. It reminds me of, what is that Nico Makarakis movie? There's definitely the plot point that they have that's really silly and light in that aspect, right? Where somebody steals something they shouldn't and everybody's chasing them. I can't remember which one it is. It was definitely in the Arrow box set that Arrow put out. It was one of those titles, and I know that doesn't help anybody, but hey, I can't remember everything, right? So basically, of course, John Steiner is an assassin, and there's also somebody on the inside who seems to be a really strange character with a cane and a knife, and they're after, of course, the two high-class prostitutes that have the film. They don't know who it is, and they're going to kill whoever gets in the way to get it. Our main character here ends up, kind of going to this, police officer, and they start this weird kind of shaky kind of sexual tension relationship, and he's going to end up helping her, but soon enough he realizes that, he can't trust anybody. He's got to help her out here. So that's kind of the plot. They kind of are definitely trying to survive against these couple assassins. A couple people are killed and picked off. It's lighthearted. It's goofy. There's a lot of sexual kind of silly politics going on between them, and there's a couple little twists here and there. Not necessarily needed on the double ending, but overall, I think that this one's decent. Dagger Eyes is fun. I didn't hate it. It's a good time waster. It's got good style. It's well shot. It's well made for what it is in that kind of aspect. But, it's not going to be super memorable to too many people, but I did enjoy the damn thing, and I'm glad I watched it, especially for 83. Kind of an oddball for 83. As far as the special features, we have commentary track. We have newly scanned and restored in 4K from its original 35 camera neg, present in original English language soundtrack as well as the Italian dub soundtrack, untranslated. Commentary track with film historian Eugenio Ercolani, Nathaniel Thompson, and Troy Howarth, two brothers for Misery, an interview with the writer Enrico Vanzani, and American Rome, an interview with actor Greg Snegoff, and that's pretty good stuff too, because this actor talks about working with Nick Alexander, the dubber, and he talks about getting coming into Italy right at the dying of it, and everybody's like, why are you here? The Americans aren't coming here to make movies anymore. He's like, I don't know. So he got roles because he was the only American left, all that kind of stuff. Interesting stuff. The House of Misery. I'm saying her name wrong. Is it Mezzare? Probably Mezzare. An interview with production designer Paolo Comencini, alternative Italian titles and credits. And yeah, the commentary's fun because, Ercolani goes over the entire career of these guys. It says these guys were guys that made mainstream movies for the mainstream audience, and they had big hits, like Nothing Underneath was a big hit, which is kind of interesting, to be honest, because I'm watching this and I'm like, this is an oddball movie. Like, it seems like it has money, but I can't see it being incredibly popular. And this one didn't make that much money, but it's weird that these guys are the ones that were making these big mainstream kind of silly movies that everyone enjoyed. Okay, would the early 80s be complete if I didn't talk about one of these kind of weird Charlie Band produced, I guess, like compilation videos, right? So like the last couple years we had like Best of Sex and Violence, Famous TNA, and now we got Filmgore. And instead of John Carradine or Sybil Danning stepping in, we have Elvira. Gotta love Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. She would always kind of do these like, talk about the movies and make fun of them, and always have playful like kind of dialogue, kind of what like the Crypt Keeper would become later on, but or any other horror host. But she's a little bit different. She's not like Joe Bob, who presents the movies and says some things like that, but she like pops in and makes jokes and one-liners and very, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? She's very, I can't believe I'm having a brain fart right now, but not ploys, but you know exactly what I'm saying. She says a lot of silly things and very funny kind of, I mean, sometimes they're so bad they're funny, sometimes they're clever, right? But yeah. So anyways, another compilation video. It opens up and we have like a bunch of edited clips that are like, this is kind of crazy, spoiling all these movies, but that's exactly what these film compilations are made, right? People rent them, they see the best clips of these movies, maybe they'll rent some of the other ones, put a couple big titles on there like Texas Chainsaw and Blood Feast and whatnot, and then people will rent the other ones in there and check them out because maybe they're not doing so well. But, Charlie Band was right on the pulse of that video store thing and putting all these movies out in Wizard Video and stuff like that, and he had a big catalog of, low-budget European movies and stuff like that, and a couple other ones too. So he had the Herschel Gordon Lewis movies, Texas Chainsaw, Driller Killer, tons of shit. So he's sitting there trying to like cut these together and boom, make this kind of compilation video. So Elvira is great. I love Elvira. Besides, I was going to say she's kind of like the Crypt Keeper, but she's got a great giant set of boobs that sit right here. I remember renting these tapes that she used to do for the Heimer House of Horrors. They kind of did these on Thriller Video. They would have these tapes where she would introduce them and everything. And my grandpa's like, he's watching those movies because she's got great big tatas, and he's like, it was just, I was a little kid, and I don't know if it was even that reason, but I just would rent any horror movies. I love that, but they were fun, and I don't remember Elvira so much from them as kind of like I do remember Rude Awakening and Silent Scream, and rewatching those for 1980 was kind of fun. But I do remember Elvira. I love her movie from '86. She's very fun, and it's just weird because she like they'll show it instead of like being a movie where she comes in and says like jokes and things of that nature. It's a compilation already, so it's like these movies are cut up into like 5-minute clips of the gore or violence, and then she'll pop in on top of that, so it's completely disjointed. So it's a good way for the time for somebody to see all these movies in bits and pieces of the best of them or put in the background. But as far as like a movie that works now, it doesn't. It really doesn't. None of these do. It's damn near 2 hours long as well. So the movies that they really focus on are of course Blood Feast, which I know people infamously on this channel, if you watch it, they're like, Dave hates Herschel Gordon Lewis. I don't hate Herschel Gordon Lewis. There's this weird thing that happened in like the early 2000s, right? Where all these people that have, questionable taste, I'm one of them as well, have questionable taste, went to Herschel Gordon Lewis and Roberta Findlay, and they said, you make all the best movies. You're the best filmmaker of all time. You are so innovative and ahead of your time. And these people definitely were, in a certain aspect, innovative and made these movies what they are today, right? The horror genre. But at the same time, they were working on a budget and they did a lot of good things. But Herschel Gordon Lewis was never trying to make an excellent movie. He was always trying to make a buck. And then you hear these later interviews when they're doing commentaries with Herschel Gordon Lewis, and he's like, all these, Keanu Reeves is a terrible actor. This actor's way better than him. Ray, whatever from Wizard of Gore is way better than Keanu Reeves. And you're just like, I don't know what kind of smoke they're blowing up your ass, man, but it's just like it hits that point of like delusion, and I'm just like, what's going on here? And Roberta Findlay interviewed him like, George Romero's bad. He sucked making movies. Not like that's a piece of shit. And you're just like, what the fuck is happening? like to the point where it's just like the questionable bad taste people have like blown smoke up these people's asses so much, and sometimes like they're just these kind of larger than life characters in general. I don't want to go on this huge tangent, but there's not that fucking much to talk about in Filmgore. But the big movies they talk about are Blood Feast. They go over this like 20, like a 5. I think Blood Feast is like 20 minutes of gore clips from Blood Feast, and she has a couple funny moments. Texas Chainsaw, Driller Killer, Drive-In Massacre, Dr. Jekyll's Dungeon, Dr. Jekyll's Dungeon of Death. There's a couple other ones here: Carnival of Blood, 2000 Maniacs, Snuff. So some of these movies are probably best to watch in a compilation, so you might get off on that one. But like, you know what I mean? Like, infamously, kind of some of these are bad, but I always did love, of course, who dislikes Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and of course I love that movie, and the Astro Zombies is in here as well. But overall, I mean, it's the longer of the compilation videos, and there's a couple of viral lines that had me cracking up. One of them when I think it's Jerry gets hit with a hammer in Texas Chainsaw, and he has that, or is it Kurt? I think it's Kurt. But he has that line where he's, instead of rest in peace, he says writhe in peace, and because he's shaking on the ground. I was like, that is really morbid as shit, but funny. It's from the Grindhouse Full Moon DVD, so it's not remastered. It's probably just a VHS slapped on DVD kind of thing here. It doesn't look fantastic. Great cover art. I remember that cover art. Always a cool cover. And this is definitely probably a video store staple for a lot of people here. But directed by Ken Dixon, who seems to be the guy to go to on these ones. But overall, I don't know if I could give this a giant recommend or anything like that, but if you got something thrown on in the background, the picture quality's not great, of course, but Charlie Band's on there talking about these kind of 10 movies they originally were going to put out. I think they went ahead and put out more of them as well, none of them remastered, but of course he talks about these kind of as in terms of the Grindhouse. That's when a lot of people, Grindhouse came out, a lot of people are doing the Grindhouse look on these movies and stuff of that nature. So for 1983, I do think it's a better compilation than Best of Sex and Violence and Famous TNA, although I think those movies actually, especially Best of Sex and Violence, did shoot a little bit of its own footage for the movie, unlike Filmgore. I don't think it has any. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. Okay, the Patreon pick is a wild one. I can't remember who picked this, but we're going into the Halloween box set here from Scream Factory, and we are going to talk about not 1981's Halloween 2. We're going to talk about DVD rattling in here. Oh, it's a bonus disc. We're going to talk about the H2, Halloween 2, the director's cut here. This is the director's cut of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 from 2009. I know 99% of people fucking hate Rob Zombie. 99% of people hate his remakes. How dare they touch Halloween? How dare they remake Halloween after they had such a long, great franchise like Halloween Resurrection and Halloween 6 Curse of Michael Myers? How could they ruin it with something like Halloween and Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie? You know what I mean? Like, save your fucking crocodile. Yeah, save your fucking, what's not crocodile tears? Crocodile tears. Whatever. It's fucking nonsense. Who gives a shit? You don't like it, don't watch it. Period. I mean, my favorite movie, Day of the Dead, has been remade twice. They both fucking suck. I wish I had something half as good as Halloween or Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie for Day of the Dead. But anyways, here we go. Now, I do like Rob Zombies. I don't like every movie he ever made. I don't blindly love everything or blindly hate everything. I understand that Rob Zombie's not for everybody, especially when it comes to Halloween. When people pop in Halloween, they don't really want psychological stuff in their horror film. They don't want something dark and gritty and nasty. They're not looking for that kind of downbeat. They're not looking for Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer when they go to watch Halloween. And I completely understand that. But me, I don't give a shit. In fact, I kind of like the Halloween movies when they go completely bonkers and off the wall. I love the first Halloween, of course. The second one I'm fine with. I do like it now, over time. I love the third one. And, I like the Rob Zombie ones. And I like the Halloween Ends, which is the one that everybody hates. And I like it because it's basically the complete opposite of what everyone wanted in a Halloween movie, the majority. And I don't know. I'm just crazy at that point. When it comes to Halloween movies, I'm probably a nutcase. But H2. So the original Halloween 2007, I remember liking, and I watched it a bunch of times when it came out. I have not watched it since, and I probably should have rewatched it for this one. But H2 I remember seeing in theaters, and I'm both Halloweens actually, and I remember liking it. I remember it being incredibly fucking weird. And you can tell Rob Zombie's like, if I have to do a Halloween 2 movie, I don't want to be held to any, standard. I want to be weird. I want to go with it. And we introduce this white horse thing, which a lot of people do not like. It kind of does the whole like kind of moment from Michael Myers is when he was a kid, he had this moment with his mom. So there you can have that idea, right, that this white horse shows up with Michael Myers' mother and him as a child, that idea. And these are all kind of the inner voice of Michael Myers, right, talking to him because he doesn't really have a voice in the movies. Rob Zombie said this in the commentaries and whatnot. Now, talking to the director's cut first, of course, and the theatrical had some differences. Now, we kind of also focus on Laurie Strode big time in this movie, right? We'll get over this. Michael Myers should be dead. He died at the end of the 2007. Malcolm McDowell should be dead, right? Whatever. So many horror movies kind of just rewrite the past, or they change things, or they don't really over-explain it why. And these ones are a little bit more grounded in reality, so I can understand why people are like, what the fuck? But so their characters are all back, and they all kind of have changed their personalities. They're kind of reflections of, they have had trouble. What happened to them, obviously, with something traumatic and crazy like that happening. So Laurie Strode is now kind of lives with Lee Brackett, and Daniel Harris also survived, right? That part's a little iffy, but it's just the way the story he wanted to tell. So all these characters have survived, and they're suffering through trauma, and she 2 years later, only in the director's cut, only can live with him. So she's obviously struggling psychologically. She goes to Margaret Kidder, who's her psychologist, and they talk, and she has breakdowns and all this shit like that. And it's getting closer to Halloween, so she's obviously having a little bit more trouble here. And we keep cutting to Michael Myers, who appears to be this like big burly bum that's living on dogs eating them, right? Like the actual Michael Myers did as well. And we have Malcolm McDowell, who's become this complete sellout, blood money kind of guy, writing these books and not giving a shit. High roller Hollywood type asshole who only cares about sensationalizing everything and selling the sizzle, not the steak, right? He's become this kind of monster. So all these characters have like changed over this course. Not so much Michael Myers, except that head injury maybe gave him that visual of the white horse and whatnot. So he has this idea that he wants to, get his baby sister and they can all die and kind of go and be in peace in a family again, and wherever fucking weird dimension they'll be. Obviously, there's got to be some slight psychological, supernatural issues going on here. Definitely that idea that shared, psychological kind of insanity between the two, genetic kind of mental illness, but also the idea that they have this visual psychosis, I guess you'd say, in there. But the movie's incredibly violent, like the first one. Has a kind of a cast of a lot of character actors and horror kind of people that they love, like Daniel Roebuck comes back, he's in here, Margaret Kidder's in here, you'll see Dwayne Whitaker, just a lot of people that pop up in this movie. Sometimes they play more than one character. The guy from, I can't think of his name, Daniel something, who pops up in Lords of Salem, he's in here as well. But a lot of these characters play multiple characters. I think that Brad Dourif as the sheriff is great in this. I think Daniel Harris does a solid job. I think Laurie Strode, Scott Taylor Compton does a great job too. There's a couple parts where her performance is almost so over the top, but she's getting this manic, weird energy, and I'm like, have you ever seen anybody be manic? It almost becomes like cringy and embarrassing, and she does hit that point at certain times. And I'm like, I don't know if this is just too accurate for its own good, but I think later on her performance is stronger towards the end and everything like that. But she starts to lose her, her mental capabilities as well when she figures out the truth that she is Michael Myers' sister. So all that kind of stuff like that. There's a Halloween feel to it. The one complaint I do have about the movie is it doesn't look... I don't know if I love the look of it. I think it's a little too dark. And I know it's trying to be depressing and dark, but I think maybe they just were rushed a little bit. Hearing commentary on Rob Zombie, maybe they couldn't light the scenes as much as they wanted or do exactly as much as they wanted. There's definitely shots that are definitely made for atmosphere and weird shots. And he definitely is making this weird, trippy, gritty, nasty movie. That's what he's going for. And it's not going to be for everybody because it's not really very much like a traditional Halloween movie, especially the first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. It does have similarities to his movie, but it has its own weird aspect as well. I think that the director's cut ending is much better. If you watch it, it sets it up throughout the movie. It brings back Love Hurts. It kind of puts a nail in the coffin here. And poor Lee fucking Brackett, man, in here. Sheriff Lee Brackett gets the worst of it. And there's this scene in here where we kind of have Daniel Harris's character die. And somebody once said, I don't think Rob Zombie is a particularly good director. And I don't necessarily agree with this sentiment, but I remember hearing this and being like, "Oh, that's very interesting," and I do agree with part of it. He said, "But he's made a career out of being able to film death scenes really well." And immediately I always think of like the first death scene in Halloween where he beats the kid in the woods, and the idea that he does like somehow manage to make these death scenes make you feel and make you hurt. And a lot of people don't want that in this kind of movie. But that idea when Lee Brackett finds his daughter dead, and that cuts to the video footage and stuff like that. It's definitely a cruel, mean-spirited movie. And at this time there was a lot of those. I like it. I think that it's something a little bit different. But it's fucking nasty. It's nasty, and it does hit me emotionally too, which is rare for a Halloween movie to do. My favorite will always be Halloween 3 because I'm that guy. But I think a lot of people do enjoy that one. But I do really like Halloween 2. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And I know I think this one is the one that has grown some fans over the years. And I know there's just so many Halloween fanboys that can't stand it. I never had a direct, hard connection with Halloween, right? I like the movies, and I grew up liking Halloween and being obsessed with Michael Myers and Jason and Freddy and all those guys. But I never had this, I feel like, I guess, ownership of the Halloween movies. And some people don't, and they still think it's a piece of shit, and that's fine too. But I do think that the Halloween fans have become, like, obsessive with, like, the franchise to the point of being, like, insane, where they'll be like, Halloween 5 is a 10 out of 10, and anybody says different is wrong. They're a monster. Like, it's wrong. It's objectively a great movie. It's just like, okay. I mean, everything's subjective, but the majority would say that it's not. But it is what it is. I haven't watched Halloween 5 in years. I just remember, that not being particularly good in memory. I'll definitely get to it eventually. But I really like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And I remember liking the first one. And I was worried to rewatch this. I wanted to hold it a good memory. Like, I remember loving this movie. And I was like, if there's a good chance this doesn't hold up, that something like this is just, it doesn't hold up to me. The one thing I really hate about this Scream Factory box set is, right, so they do all these different versions of all the Halloween movies, but they don't put the theatrical versions of of the Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2 on there. So I had to import a Canadian Blu-ray back in the day to get them, because I actually prefer the theatrical version of Rob Zombie's Halloween, because it has the Tom Tolles, Leslie Easterbrook, Bill Moseley scene and in it, which I love. You know how many sit-ups I have to do to burn off a fucking donut? Yeah, and then I prefer the director's cut of this one. So it's an odd, kind of weird franchise. As far as the features are concerned, we have audio commentary with writer-director Rob Zombie, which is good, and he shed some light on some of the problems they had on this movie. Tyler Mane as Jason and stuff is good here. I meant Freddy as Jason. I called him Jason. But he played Sabretooth before, but he plays Michael Myers in the first two, the only two Rob Zombie ones. Deleted and alternate scenes, audition footage, makeup test footage, blooper reel, Captain Clegg and the Night Creatures music video. Obviously, shout out to Hammer, the band name, Uncle Seymour Coffin stand-up routines. But I also do want to mention the theatrical ending. I don't like it nearly as much. It leaves it a little bit more wide open. It ends with the Halloween kind of music instead of the Love Hurts. I think that the director's cut is more a sealed ending. I think it sets a triangle better with the characters, and I think it's more sad and more tragic and more fitting for this kind of story that he was trying to tell. While the theatrical version kind of almost leaves it open for a sequel that we most certainly didn't need. But hey, it is what it is. Do we need any sequels when it comes to this? We're like people also got to remember that this is like the 10th Halloween movie in a franchise. Number 10. Yeah, you guys need to relax on coming down hard on these movies. It's the fucking 10th movie in a franchise. That's why when people are coming at that new Texas Chainsaw, they're like, this is horrible. It's like number 9. It's number 9. You're lucky it's even shot on anything but a potato. And I don't hate that new one either. I don't think it's some fucking work of art, but I think it's entertaining crap, and that's all you can expect for a latter-day franchise. If they give you anything else, you should be happy it's even there. And I know people are like, you're saying that? But I mean, I've come to learn on franchises that you don't expect much out of them. And if they pleasantly surprise in the later days, then consider it a win. This box set here... like I said, I'd never buy another Halloween. I made a joke. I said if they put John Carpenter's DNA in here, I would never buy another Halloween box set. And then I ended up buying those fucking first 5 4Ks because I'm a madman. But hey, it is what it is. I didn't end up buying parts 6, 7, and 8 4Ks because I don't give a shit about those movies. But I might pick up 6 or something. I don't know. Maybe. Never say never. But that box set there. Yeah, I think that is the end of the reviews. All right, let's get into the questions, comments, and concerns. Nick Flanders, 59. I'm thinking I should check out some of the Plitia Tetsi movies. It's a genre I've had yet to explore, but I'm feeling curious about. You seem to like plenty of them, and you have yet to steer me wrong, sir. Intensive Care, easily one of Holland's most unintentionally crummy horror movies, and that's saying something. Featuring Ken Wouters, one of Belgium's best and most popular singers, who, according to himself, is a shit actor. I think I'll be picking up the Dan Curtis TV movies. I love actors like Jack Palance and Shane Bryant. May they rest in peace. They were in one each. Of course, yeah. Pitcher, Dorian Gray, and Dracula. I think that Jack Palance might have been it too. I think he's also in the Dr. Jekyll one. Questions. What's your favorite made-for-TV horror movie? Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, baby, all day. Why does dubbing seem to work so well in Italian movies but not other countries? Because they don't shoot with sound. And they don't work now. They worked back then because they shoot not in sound and the actors speak in their native languages. So if you're used to that actor speaking in English, or he's speaking in English on set, so you pop in a movie, and if you're watching it, the English version, you're like, oh, well, Oliver Reed's speaking in English in this, so I'm watching the English version. So your actors don't seem off, even though sometimes they didn't dub their own voices. So Italy had a giant system, and they were great at it. And they basically knew what they were doing at the time, and they were the best at it. So, I mean, that's why it works in those movies. And doesn't even work in Italian movies now. I don't know, sure they do dubbing. They usually just have, people speak different languages they're not comfortable with. If you could have any actor, living or dead, dub your voice, who would you pick? I'd choose James Earl Jones. I don't want anybody to dub my voice. It wouldn't be mine. A great show as always, and until next time, God willing. Sophia Bongos. To be 20 is incredible. It's like a Fernando De Leo made a Joe D'Amato movie. Also, the Strange Circus release from New Wave Video is excellent. Thank you. I look forward to the To Be 20. Art editor loves it, my friend. Gray Nunez gives you a smiley face. Thank you. No More Room in Hell podcast. Saw all that jazz for the first time earlier this year, actually. What an absolute fever dream of a ride that was a journey through the anxiety-ridden pressure to put on a successful musical theater production. Roy Scheider was great. 100% agree. Suspirion. That is Suspirion. That's a weird way to say it. 2530. The director, he's quoting me, the director who is a pretentious kind of dickhead. Not super dicky. Haha, love it. I'm stealing that one. Not super dicky. Most of my friends would fall into that category and would definitely describe me that way. What's the saying? Birds of a feather, yada yada. Yep, flock together. Hideki talks. Hopefully a big film scan of Alone in Against Terror comes along soon, because you're right, that one is great. The big guy whose name you couldn't think of, I always just call him Spanish Orson Welles. That's a good one. Solwyn Christ 500. I imagine Fulci repurposed some of the massacre footage for Cat in the Brain, as well as some of the other footage from his later career. Wonder if any of the other Fulci Presents films ended up used in Cat in the Brain too. Oh yeah, of course. Mr. Jesus Station. Mrparka, I love you. We'll watch your videos. What may, but do you really need to be wearing so many clothes? Sorry, I meant to wear a tank top this episode. My bad. Way Up Dude gives you a thumbs up. Thank you, Ken Coakley. A few weeks back, you said that you wanted to check out some older films that may have been overlooked. I've seen a lot of films that either get no love or have been forgotten. The Doorway to Hell, 1930. Lee Ayres' Samuel's Lot plays a young gangster who retires early only to be lured back in by underling James Cagney. Dwight Fry has a role in the film. Black Legion, 37. Humphrey Bogart plays a factory worker who joins a secret society after being passed up for a promotion. Gentleman's Agreement, 47. Gregory Peck plays an investigative reporter who goes undercover to do an article on anti-Semitism. The film was directed by Eliza Kazan and won an Oscar for Best Picture. 1968, Wild in the Streets. Christopher Jones plays a rock star named Max Frost who endorses a candidate, Hal Holbrook. After Holbrook wins, Frost convinces Holbrook to propose a bill lowering the voting age from 21 to 16. Eventually, Frost managed to have the minimum age to 23. So all the people over 30 are in concentration camps. Richard Pryor plays Max Drummer. That sounds wild. 1968, Psych Out. A young deaf woman goes to Haight Ashbury to search for her brother, Bruce Dern. She meets three hippies, Nicholson, Max Julian, and Adam Rourke, who help her in her search. And Adam Rourke is Dirty Mary Crazy Larry. So, yeah, let's just do the update here. A relatively quick one. We got a couple more from New Wave here. Nighty Night. This is a late 1980s horror movie. Was it 96? Oh, this is a different slipcover they threw in there for Rubber's Lover. My bad, I was seeing the wrong year. But the director of Rubber's Lover recently passed away, so R.I.P. to him. But yeah, so this one was made in like the late 80s and didn't really get that much of a release, but yeah, they did. It's remastered from a tape, so best. But then we also got Noriko's Dinner Table, a Cyan Sano movie. Great movie from 2005. Cool glossy cover arts too. I meant slipcovers. Definitely enjoy them. But yeah, they put another Strange Circus slipcover on there. They're bonus slipcovers on these. I still need to get the Rubber's Lover, but nice, great releases from New Wave. Look forward to checking those out. I've seen Noriko's Dinner Table and Strange Circus, of course. But yeah, let's get out of here.